G'day guys, welcome back to the channel once again, and this is part 7 of the Yak 55M build series. So in this series, if you're new to the channel or you've just clicked on it, going through a series of videos of with building a Seagull Models Yak 55M. So in this video I will be showing the current progress that I have made, and I've actually made quite a bit of progress. In the last video I went over going about installing the engine, or just getting it ready to be installed, and just semi-installing it, I guess you could say. And I've done a fair few other things off camera, so what I'll do is I will show you what I've managed to get up to. So if we look over here, the engine is installed. In the last video I had to make a little alteration to the firewall here. You can see I've cut a slight angle just so that the muffler doesn't foul onto the firewall there. Now, in the previous video I mentioned about the ignition box being on the top. Now, as I've mentioned in a couple of other previous videos, it's the cowl that goes over has a dummy radial engine in it, so it will make it virtually impossible to flick the choke on and off to start this. So what I've done is I've decided to go with a servo for operating the choke. So we have the choke here, and as you can see, operates the little butterfly down there. That's the choke. I have decided to mount the servo here. It's on some vibration absorption gel. I have at the moment just got a zip tie holding it down quite firmly, although there is still a little bit of movement. I might do something else with that later, but at the moment it's just in for the time being. So that means that because I've decided to mount the servo here so as to get a good leverage for the choke, it means I've now had to put the ignition box right here, which is I wanted to keep the ignition box away from the servo, just in case that there is any interference of some kind. Now, if we have a look down in here, I've also got the fuel tank in, and we move back, the fuel tubing is all plumbed, and I have also installed the receiver and ignition switches. And if we look down here, I have the quick fill system for filling the tank. Now, just down in here, what I've got, so the tank just sits in there like so, and what I've done is right here there's a zip tie that goes across and out, so you can just see it there, and it comes out here, and I've just put another bit on. That is purely just to hold it down. However, if I can just do this on camera without the tank isn't fully secured, so the zip tie stops it from bouncing up and down but not going back and forth. Like, it is down fairly tight, but it won't stop it from sliding back. So what I've done is I've just 3D printed a simple little bracket here, and what I've done down in here is just got some paddle pop sticks and glued them down. And then what I'm going to do is drill a hole, small hole there, and then I will have it go up against the tank, and that's just there just to stop the tank from sliding back. And if I have to access or remove the tank at some point in the future, which I hope not to, but if I have to, just a case of undoing the screw, taking the L bracket out, and I can just pull the tank out. So I will get to that shortly. So here, like I said, I had to got some bracing there. The plate, it's just some plywood that sits on the top here. I will just put a little bit of shoe goo in there, not a lot, just a little bit, just to stop it from rattling out. That way, if at some point I have to remove this, it's just a simple case of breaking it off, the shoe goo that is. I don't intend on taking it out, but if need be, it is a case of just, like I said, breaking off the shoe goo and then taking it out. I've also got the throttle lever in at the moment. I got to cut off this excess. I will do that off camera. I haven't screwed down the little set screw there, so as you can see, I can just move it. So that's the throttle hooked up. Where are we? So that's the throttle hooked up there. So that's coming along well. What I've also done, the wings are inside my house at the moment, but I've installed the control rods for the ailerons on the main wings. I still have to install the wire for the pull system for the rudder, and the rods here for the elevators. Now, tires, I've bought the tires, some Dubro 4.5 inch pneumatic tires for this model. I personally don't like the kit tires that come with it. Partly they're a little bit too narrow, and at my local aircraft club, the grass for the runway is actually quite spongy, and with these, they're wider than the kit wheels or kit tires, and being pneumatic, I can adjust the tire pressure so that it's got a bit of bounce to it, but also with the weight, when it's on there, it'll spread out a little bit. So in theory, it'll spread out over the grass and not want to dig in, because I have a few models that when they land, because of the type of tires they have on them, when they land, they start to nose in a little bit, so you got to give a little bit of elevator to keep the tail down to stop it from flipping over. So yeah, guys, we're getting along there. The engine, like I said, is permanently mounted now. It's in, it's ready, basically ready to go. I am just waiting for a propeller to turn up for it, and then hopefully, in theory, I will be able to do the first start on it soon. I might wait until I've built the model completely. So what's next for this? Well, I did mention, I think it was the last video or the video before that I was kind of at the halfway point. So in theory, yes, I am at the halfway point. I'm probably a bit further along than halfway. It's a bit hard to tell. So what needs to be done with this? Well, as I said, I've got to install the wire for the pull system, the rods here for the elevators. I also have to basically finish up the engine installation, which is mainly put the prop on, making sure the servo is working properly, because that is technically part of it because it operates the choke. And I know I've got to get some screws, 2 more screws for the servo, throttle servo there. What is also needs to be done is over here with the cowl. When I first put it on, I thought it was just going to go on here, and I thought, crikey, that's going to be a really long cowl, because the engine was actually recessed inside the cowl. I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. So I had another glance over the instruction manual, and I found the instruction manual to be, well, in my experience with building model airplanes, especially with companies like Seagull, Black Horse, Phoenix Models, so forth, I have found the instruction manual to be somewhat vague in their instructions. And so we have here, so here's the cowl. So that's the dummy radial engine, and it says, you put it inside the cowl, and open a hole for the for air cooling. And it says trim and cut, but what it doesn't tell you, exactly everything that you got to trim and cut. So if we look here, I've got to trim and cut some excess of the cowl out so it will fit in with the profile for where the wing slots in. So I've got to do that on both sides. I've also got to trim and cut part of the cowl for where it slides on. It's got to slide past the landing gear here. So like I said, it's a little bit, it's a bit vague. It doesn't really tell you everything. You kind of got to look at the pictures and guess. So obviously, like I mentioned, this kit was mainly designed for like a 122 stroke glow engine. So some of the cutting you have to do in the cowl will not be necessary because of this engine. But it is going to be a shame though, because I'm going to have to cut possibly part of this out. So I'm going to try and keep it keep much of this as possible, but I might have to cut that away just so when I have the dummy radial engine in, got the hole for engine cooling, need as much air to come out as possible. So I might have to cut maybe along here, maybe out here as well, just so I can get as much of that hot air out of the cowl to keep the engine cool. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to tackle the rear control surfaces, so the rods and the pull system. We are going to just go on to the part where I've just put a bit of just stick the little L bracket down there to hold the tank in place, and possibly I've already done a little bit of tidying up, but I've tidied up some of the wiring for the elevators and so forth, so can always do a little bit more, make it better, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright guys, so here's a little tip for you. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm getting the end points for the pull system set up. So this is be for what goes to the servo horn and what connects to the rudder. What a little tip for when if you've got this kind of setup with the ball links, you don't want to over thread the plastic here onto the rod end, obviously, because you don't want to strip the plastic. So what I like to do is I like to have the thread the entire way in, So what I need to do is measure how far in the thread will go. So obviously we could see here where it just rounds off. That'll be the end of the thread. So then now we can see, so when I put the rod on the outside there, we can see that this is going to be where it stops. So with a permanent marker, I just carefully mark the end. Might help if I use the right side. It's still good, but there we go. So you probably can't see there on camera, but right there I have a small marker. So now when I go to put it on, I'm going to, bumble fingers, I'll just do it on camera. So now we just wind it on. And there we have it, guys. So as you can see, that is level. Now we just wind that up. So we have two ends ready. So it's a similar kind of setup as that, but obviously you don't have to worry about that because that is metal. But there's a little tip for you guys, so if you happen to strip the plastic on the inside. Alright guys, so now we have got our linkages set for the pull system. Now what we need to do is obviously install this into the plane. So obviously we need our linkages, but we will also need these crimps. And this is to crimp the wire to stop the wire from slipping, and obviously we need our wire, which we have right here. So this bit here will go on straight onto the rudder, so we'll put that aside. Now we have this is for the servo, so we'll get our little crimp here. Now I'm just going to make sure, now we just carefully thread that on. It's pretty straightforward. Now we put it through. Now we reverse it back over through the loop here. Now pull this fairly tight, and I like to crimp it down a little bit of it like that. Then what I do, if I can get my fingers around it, is fold this back. Then we carefully slide this back through. So it can be a little bit cumbersome to do, but the whole point of doing this is to stop the wire from slipping. Okay, that's come through. Get our hit some pliers and pull this through. Okay. Just making sure this is still on camera. Okay, now, so you want it to basically be like that. So now we need these crimping tools here, and just squash it down firmly. Then with our, we just get the excess here. Where did I put those snips? You snip off the excess. So now that will go onto the servo, and what I will do is I will thread it through the tube and then just show it, and then we'll get on to connecting it to the rudder. Okay, so I have the wire here threaded through, so it just comes out just past the elevator servo. So if we have a look here, so that we got our wire, both wires going through. So I've done this one here. When you're doing it, make sure that you have your servo horn level, or not. So make sure it's, you know, not cockeyed like that. You want it to be as level as possible, so that way you have equal lengths, so that the rudder, it's in line with the rudder. Now when you're doing this, I'm going to have to do this off camera, because obviously it's going to be, it's a two-hand job to do this, and one hand can't do it while the other is holding the camera. So I will do this off camera, but I will explain the process. It's virtually the same as what I just showed you with the part that connects to the servo horn. So you thread it through, and with your little crimp here, if I can get it away from there, with the little crimp, same thing as before. Do the loop through it, wrap it around again, and crimp it down. Now don't worry if it's slightly, say for instance, a bit too much pull in one direction. You can always take this clevis off the rudder horn and unwind it out or in to adjust it so that it is level. So you can make some fine tuning adjustments. But like I said, usually if you have your rudder servo level, so then it's equal lengths and it should be straightforward. So I will stop it here. I will do the loops and everything, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we've done the setup now, so it's just mainly a case now of just getting this excess wire here and lining it up, trying to do it on camera. So we've cut the excess off there, so it's nice and neat and it's not scraping. Now as you can see, it's a little bit floppy.
That's what she said.
So what we need to do is just basically, I'll do this off camera, so it's mainly a case of just taking the clevis off, winding it in so it pulls it taut, so it's not all sloppy all over the place. But we have servo here, but it is doing rudder things. So So that's what we want it to do, and that's pretty good. So as you can see too, I've done the elevator rods. They're doing elevator things, as you can see. So that's virtually the rear end of the aircraft done. So we'll just carefully put this down here. So what I got to do now is fit the wheels. I'm currently 3D printing some spaces here. So these are the little eyelets that hold the wheel on, but because these have these nuts here, because it's a two-piece wheel, or if it's two-piece or three-piece, I can't remember if it's a two-piece or three-piece. Anyway, because of these nuts here, what will happen is as the tire's spinning, they're going to be clunking away on the nut here. So what I'm doing is I'm currently, as we speak, 3D printing some axle spaces. So they're about the same width as the eyelet here. So I will do that, get that done, and then work out what else needs to be done. Alright, so going by what I've just been doing, I just did a little bit of assessment off camera. I could honestly say this model's about 95% complete. So we've done the tail end, everything's glued, connected, threaded, bolted, what have you. So that's all done. Come along in here. So we have our pull system. I just got to make some adjustments to it, as mentioned before. I've cut the throttle wire to length. I haven't fastened it. That is something I'll do when it comes to programming everything. So down in here I have got the tank stopper. Hang on a sec, I'll move that out of the way so we can all have a look. So the tank stopper is screwed down, so it's just a case of that little screw down there, undo it, that comes out. So if I have to at some point, I can take the tank out. The switches and the quick fuel system is in and glued down. I just have to connect the servo leads to, I've just started to do a few, just have to do those, and ones for the ailerons. Just got to finish up just that little bit around here, around the engine, get it ready for its first start. And if I just tuck these in here, the canopy is done. It's a bit hard to do this one-handed, guys, so just give me a second. So the canopy is done, guys. It is really starting to look like a plane now. This is basically how it will look with being apart without the, obviously excluding the cowl. It's pretty much how it'll look when I'm transporting it. So I can honestly say we're getting there, guys. It's I'm definitely looking forward to starting this up for the first time. So what I will be doing off camera in the next video is I'll do the start getting it all programmed. I'll go over nuts and bolts, make sure everything's ready. I am just waiting for a propeller to turn up for it. I've got a master air screw 18 by 8 turning up for it. So yeah guys, we're getting there. It's almost done. So I'm going to wrap this video up. In the next video I'll just be going over some final assembly with this, and hopefully, I'm not going to make promises, but hopefully I will be able to get this thing started. So I hope you've enjoyed this video guys. As always, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to comment down below, and I will see you in hopefully the final video. Cheers guys.